Hey, hi, welcome. I'm trying to add harvest right now. Okay, I'll be joining. Very hi, Kate. How are you all? So, we're waiting for harvest to join us, and meanwhile, we want to know. Hi, Juliana. From Brooklyn, New York. Hey, hey. Okay, we have a small technical issue. Uh, okay, let's see if I can add harvest. I've got. Okay, technology is surely something valuable, but Instagram is kind of overloaded right now, I think. Harvest, if you can hear me, I just sent you an invitation. Yay! Here we
Yeah, I'm
are.
here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So thank you so much for accepting our invitation to talk about Spencerian and introduce a little bit of this delicate, elegant, beautiful script to our pointed pen lovers. I know you're very busy in this period because you started your new online class. So thank you so much. Very
You
much
are welcome. I'm
appreciate.
delighted to be here. Oh, say hi to Heather. Hey,
Hey,
Marilla.
Heather. Oklahoma is here. I think New York City,
Chicago.
Kisato. Hi. So, okay, just 1 minute to do our housekeeping
Okay.
harvest. Um, I don't know if everybody knows that if you don't want to see all comments, sorry for the kitty. I've got two cats in the house, so they must jump in. Okay, so if you want to hide most comments, or practically all comments but one, just tap once on your screen and it will hide all comments. So you can see better Harvest because she's in the bottom part of your screen. Second thing, and then I'm done, and we dive in our chat, is that we are going to record the Instagram live and upload it on our YouTube channel, in our video section on our website. So if you don't want your account to be visible, please leave now. Instead, if not, if you're staying with us, which we appreciate, every comment will be visible in the recording for posterity. So let's do it. Okay, so I think most of you know Harvest. She is a master penman, a Yampeth master penman, and the director of the Spencerian saga. We will talk about the Spencerian saga in depth later, but I would like you to introduce everybody to the history, the historic background of the Spencerian saga, the Spencerian style, and Platt Roger Spencer. His
Okay.
family, the society he lived in, and why he developed this style. Because I guess there was a need for this.
It was more than just a need. He was obsessed from the time he was a little kid with handwriting. I mean, he was just born that way and very naturally inclined to wanting to write, to wanting the movements, to wanting kind of the rhythmical feel of it and the slant and the gracefulness and all those things. So even though he grew up learning other methods, it was something that irked him as a kid to see people writing in all these different slants and all these different ways and writing quite sloppily, a lot of it. Um, Remember when he grew up, for a lot of the time they were using quills. They didn't start using metal nibs until he
Okay.
was, I think those came about in 1822. So he was born in 1800. So he would
Okay.
have been a young adult, but they also weren't readily available right when
Mm-hmm.
they started. That came a little bit afterwards. So writing with a quill can be pretty messy.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved anything he could get his hands on. He was a good friend. He made himself a good friend with a leathersmith who would save him scraps of pieces of hides and things like that so that he could practice writing on it with charcoal sticks. He would use bark, he would use the snow. Once he was about age 10, he moved from New York to Ohio and lived quite close to Lake Erie. His
Mm-hmm.
house is still there. And
Wow.
he would go up to the beach and just practice making these beautiful, graceful movements and really trying to work it out mathematically almost. He was
Mm-hmm.
very mathematically inclined as to what the easiest way for handwriting would be, because
Okay.
using a grosser script or copperplate or whatever you'd like to call it has a lot of pen lifts, it uses a lot of ink,
Mm-hmm.
and it's quite slow
Okay.
in the lettering style of it. Back in those days, everything was done by hand.
Mm-hmm.
Computers didn't come into being, they weren't even invented until after he had died. So everything in every store, every legal document, any type of business transaction, every school paper, every report, everything was lettered by hand. So the clearer you could write and the more quickly you could write, the more employable you were.
Yeah,
And
sure.
back at that time, jobs
That
were hard
was,
to come by, money
yeah.
was hard to come by. So it really drew a lot of people in who wanted to learn a trade. It
Wow.
was basically a trade school when it started.
Uh-huh. Okay. So he started with a straight holder, right?
Mhm.
So he wrote with a straight holder, and
He did
oblique
write with the
holder
straight holder,
came
oblique
later.
holders.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So I've never seen any calligrapher do Spencerian with a straight holder. Personally,
Heather's on here, and Heather writes with a straight
she
pen
does.
holder.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
okay, okay. So I have to ask her to show me how to do it.
I don't
Okay.
I don't do it because I was always taught using an oblique, and that's what's comfortable for me. And
Hmm.
even when I'm doing flourishing, a lot of people like straight, and I still use an oblique because I'm just so accustomed to it.
Okay, okay. Back to Platt Roger Spencer. He grew up. He became a teacher, right?
He did become a teacher. By the time he was 12 years old, he had worked out his system so well that the teachers in his county, which is Ashtabula County in Ohio, were asking him to teach not only the handwriting classes, but to teach the handwriting instructors how to do it.
Hmm.
So he perfected this long before he was even 15 years old, and
Wow.
then continued to get better and better. And the older he got, the more systemized it became so that it could be taught, universally throughout our country and through a large part of
So
Canada
his
also.
system was adopted, right, in
It
schools.
was the national handwriting system.
Okay, okay, but much before this, he had sons who became calligraphers
He
themselves, right?
did. All
Yeah.
in all, he had 11 children.
Wow.
Um, they did not they did not all survive, but there were 6 sons and 2 daughters that did,
Hmm.
and it became the family business basically. The
Okay.
sons took it on. He started the company Spencer and Sons, and they would teach. He had a school. home across the street from where he lived, and people would come mostly in the summers, and spend time studying with him when it wasn't crop season.
Yeah. Why, in your opinion, did Spencerian become such an appealing such an appealing script to many? Because there was a boom of Spencerian calligraphers, right? And then it became ornamental penmanship, which is quite almost a development and a study
in
in
Spencerian. Spencerian itself is very simple, which is part of why I love it. It is so elegant with the simplest of forms. And to me, that is harder to do well than ornamental penmanship, where you can hide it in all the swirls and curves and make it look like all this flashy stuff. But if your letter forms aren't spot on, then it's not, I don't think it's graceful.
Okay, so
I like the basic.
yeah, me too. Me too. Plain Spencerian. Anyway, okay. Since we're talking about Spencerian and ornamental penmanship, would you mind to first highlights of the Spencerian style? What is so appealing? What is the characteristic? We know that it is slanted 52 degrees. We know that there are quite long connectors. But apart from that, what is really appealing in your opinion?
I think the most appealing thing is that it's a running hand.
Okay.
So when you're doing lowercase letters, there are not pen lifts after every letter form. It's a continuous hand that joins and then moves one into the other. And part of what makes it work is that the interletter spacing, or the angle, is at 32 degrees. So anytime you're doing that, it's automatically spacing where the next letter starts and stops. So there's not a lot of thinking involved. So it's a wider script than copperplate. It's certainly much lighter because there's no weight on the downstrokes, except for just a few exceptions to that. So it's much easier to read.
So it's much more natural to our hand?
I think it's much more natural. For people that are learning, I always think it's easier to learn Spencerian first, and then go on to copperplate, where you're doing pen lifts and weighted downstrokes and all of that. It's hard to break that habit. So
it's quite different. Yeah,
it is.
If you
it's
come
much
from
harder for them to
copperplate,
lighten up.
I know it, but myself. Okay, so since we spoke about the two styles, because if I'm not wrong, some of Spencer's sons did also ornamental penmanship, right?
Sure.
So
they developed a series of colleges.
Okay.
Spencer Business Colleges. And there was 4 of them originally. I don't know how many they grew into. They morphed into other kinds of lettering schools, and other people started opening them. But when he and his sons did it, you can't just have it be on Spencerian. That's not enough of a curriculum. So there was also decorative flourishing. There was some broad pen that was brought into it. There was different styles. Ornamental grew out of Spencerian, but it's not part of pure Spencerian form. And they're often confused these days. They really are. Yeah. Because people see all these things, and Spencer never did that.
Okay. But it's so beautiful to see all the swirls of.
Oh, of course it is. I love them too.
Ornament, Okay, so they're frequently mixed with ornamental penmanship, measure schools with plain Spencerian for the minor skills.
Absolutely, they are. And the ornamental penmanship capitals are used with copperplate, they're used with Spencerian, they're used with several different styles of lettering. So they go with a lot of different things. It's not just one.
Okay. It is one of the most recent scripts in calligraphy, in pointed pen calligraphy, and after Spencerian, I don't think there is a a more recent script in our history, but it's a big part of your penmanship in the United States,
It is
and
in
it
America and
it
Canada too.
yeah, and it grew worldwide because everyone loves Spencerian. So um,
And part of it is
the
that
legacy,
children can do it. They can be good practitioners.
really.
Yeah,
Oh,
because you don't have to use a pointed pen. You can do a much simpler style without the weight.
monoline, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
and most of the lowercase is monoline.
And among the calligraphers, the American calligraphers that we know early 19th century, in your opinion, who was the best in Spencerian?
That's hard for me to answer because they each started developing their own styles. I can tell you the one that I
Hmm.
like the most, and
Okay,
that's
go for it.
Daniel Ames.
Daniel
That
Ames.
is who I am particularly drawn to. I love Daniel Ames' work.
Hmm.
Um, Mataraz is very popular, particularly with the guys because they like the big, thick,
More
heavy
powerful, yeah.
strokes, slinging ink
Hmm.
all around. And, you know, in the colleges, they used to have contests going among the guys of who could make the thickest swell and, you know, who could
Oh,
top each
really?
other. And that's how a lot of that grew, was out of a competition
Oh.
that came about. But
Hmm.
Daniel Ames stayed very light and very elegant and very delicate. And
Okay, the work of Ames is visible on the IAMPA website, I think, the
it
rare
is,
section,
and
rare book
I
section.
brought up a page, if I can hold it behind the camera so you can see
Yeah,
it. Can I
sure,
try that? It's
sure.
not Spencerian lettering. It's something that was used with Spencerian lettering. So I just
Hmm.
wanted to show it. Hold on, let me see if I can do this. Okay.
Wow.
These are business cards that were done. Because again, if you remember back in this time period, there was very genteel manners in society. And so you would
Uh-huh.
never consider going to somebody's house if you didn't have a business card with your name on it to leave at the door, just
Oh,
saying that you had stopped by. So there's all these things that were associated with Spencerian that we just don't do anymore. So they've kind of lost the meaning.
yeah, yeah. Agree. So, we've spoken about the differences between Spencerian and ornamental penmanship. Do you have a few samples to show us, just to for people who are not so informed, or just to show what is plain Spencerian and what is?
I brought up, let me show you this. Hold on. This is my favorite book on Spencerian. This is one of the originals from the
Yeah.
1800s.
I was going to say, yeah, and it's original.
This one is original, but it is reproduced online and you can find it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you want, I can send you the link afterwards,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that you can give to people or include in the video so that they have it for download.
As a
Hold on,
reference,
let's
yeah,
see. I
sure.
pulled up all these Spencerian samples, but I didn't pull up ornamental penmanship.
Well, I think we've got Michael Ward who joined, so he
Michael
could
can
be,
put something up there in a
yeah.
heartbeat. Michael is one of
Go.
the best practitioners living of
So if you,
Spencerian script.
uh-huh,
No
it,
question.
and he can, he does also ornamental
He
penmanship,
does a
right?
lot of ornamental penmanship. He
Okay,
does a lot
so
of signature design that is exquisite.
if you guys want to see ornamental penmanship, go to his Instagram account, and there's plenty of exemplars.
He also teaches an online class for Acorn Arts in signature writing.
Oh,
That's wonderful.
good. Okay,
He's,
so
he's
people,
very, very good.
uh-huh,
But I
interesting.
do have some others I can hold up of just the simple Spencerian.
Mm-hmm.
Let me change this. The swells
Yes.
are very light and delicate. They're not big and heavy.
Mm-hmm.
The ovals fit a proportion of about 1 3/4 long
Mm-hmm.
to 1 wide. Pretty and so simple and so different than what people might think of it being.
But
It's a different proportion than copperplate is.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
taller. The ascenders are taller. The descenders are longer. The
Mm-hmm.
caps are at 3 times the X height. So it's a more spaced out alphabet, which also helps contribute to it being easier to read.
So, okay, if someone wants to wants to start learning by himself, one is the manual that you showed just a few minutes ago, and I think that is the main resource that you would suggest to people, or?
It's what I teach from because it's the one I can get closest to Spencer's actual writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's as
Okay,
close as I can get to it. So I base my
good,
teaching on that.
good, good. Okay, and there is also a lot of original works that survived to Spencer and his sons, right? So you
There
can,
are. When we go to the saga, we make a trip to the library where you can see a lot of the original works of
wow.
Spencer.
I
There's
think,
also some at the Newberry in Chicago, has a whole section on Spencer.
right. That's something very different to a round hand or a copper plate because we have almost no originals left or still visible of the calligraphy from which they then made the copper plates.
Through it,
And
yeah.
yeah, so to me personally, that is a very strong point of interest to see the papers and the ink on paper that they put,
Yes, it's
because it,
fascinating.
yeah,
To
and
me,
it,
that
yeah, it gives you really an idea of the arm movement, the pen movement, how they did a stroke. That's very fascinating to me. So, okay, but that's me. Let's talk about the saga. Um, that's the legacy of Spencerian, right?
that is, it was started by Michael Sull, and he is single-handedly the one who gets credit for bringing this beautiful style back into
Back.
the mainstream again. It really had pretty much died out until
Mm-hmm.
Michael really took the time to focus on it. And, his love of it grew into a book and the saga and a lot of examples that people could then study from and come to love it all over again.
Mm-hmm. And the saga, let's explain to people who may not know, is 1 week long educational retreat, correct?
It happens for 2 weeks every year in October in Geneva, Ohio, which is where Platt Roger Spencer is from. So we actually go to his house. The
Mm-hmm.
Historical
Wow.
Society purchased his house. So we go to his house, we see the grounds, we go to the lake that he used to write on and collect the stones that he used to write with. We go to the cemetery, to the library, it's kind of an immersion basically. So 1 week of that time is beginning Spencerian. And
Mm-hmm.
all that we're focused on that week is the letter forms, the basic letter forms, and learning the proper arm movement and the stretching exercises and how to do the ovals and all the parts. And then the next week is an advanced Spencerian where we start to move it into ornamental penmanship
Mm-hmm.
with a lot fancier capital letters that go with it. Working more on putting together sentences or short poems or, actual construction and design involved with it. So it
Okay.
goes from one to the other, but people usually come for 1 week or the other. Not
Yeah,
many come
sure.
for both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so information about the saga is on your website, all right?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so everybody go to Harvard's website and check information if you're interested. It's always there. Application forms are there. Everything is there. As far as your teaching of Spencerian, I know that you teach Spencerian in the US. You've been offering online courses in the past of Spencerian. I personally took the beginner Spencerians with you. Are you going to offer it again?
I get a lot of requests for it. So yes, I'm going
Okay.
to offer it again. I'm
Yay!
trying to think of different ways to do it. Thanks, Michael. He's putting messages up there.
Yeah.
It's something that takes a lot of work and a lot of concentration. So I have to make sure that my time is completely clear when I offer the class, so that that is my full focus and attention.
Okay, but it will
yes, and I
come.
get
Yeah.
requested to do the advanced one again too.
Okay, good.
But I also teach private lessons in it, and I've got
Yeah,
several people.
that would be my next question.
Yeah,
So you can do online tuition one-to-one, right?
yes,
Good.
yes. And I do. I have several students doing it, and they're at different levels. So I think even for more advanced, it's nice because then you can focus in on specifically what area you need. You know, just that it's just that little bit of correction, you know, that makes all the difference in something.
I know. Okay. Speaking about more recent representative of Spencerian and ornamental penmanship, Europe has been has had the first non-American master penman of a Yampeth, Brian Walker, yeah, who did fantastic Spencerian, in my opinion. Did you ever
In my
meet?
opinion, too.
Yeah.
No, I did not get to meet him, but we've had
Oh,
several phone conversations and several letter exchanges. So I
okay.
felt like I knew him. He was so warm and gracious and sharing with all of his knowledge. I was a
He,
part of his Spencerian correspondence group for a little while.
oh, right. Okay. I don't know. I've done a little research on Brian Walker, and I wasn't able to find much online. So people may refer. I think he had a special interest group in the UK, but I'm not sure.
He had two of them, actually. He had one in copperplate that existed for a long time. I don't know if it's still going or not. And then he started a Spencerian one, which had a
Okay.
really big following. People loved his group. What people might not know about him is what an incredibly talented artist and penman he was. He was one of the founding members of class.
Yeah. I think Joy Daniels knows more about that, and she runs the copper plate group, so I can get in touch.
And I know that
Yeah,
Heather was a good
here
friend
she
of
was.
Brian
Yeah,
Cobb.
it was the Spencerian study group. Okay, so everyone who wants more to know more, yeah, because he was from, yeah, he was born in the UK. He was a British
Yes, yes.
calligrapher. So we've had one calligrapher in Europe who did wonderful Spencerian. So we have
And
Brian
Barbara
was a rare
Calzolari
talent.
does.
Yeah.
Yes, from Italy. She also does too.
So
You're
okay,
right, Heather. I miss him too. But he was not, a lot of what he did, from what I saw, what he sent me was not ornamental penmanship. It was back to the very pure Spencerian, where he would send a little copy page that's like this long that he had written out by hand, and then each
wow,
of his students would get one of those to practice from,
beautiful.
which is how they used to
Wow.
teach.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, would you mind mentioning if there which are your favorite calligraphers in history? I know you do broad edge as well as pointed pen. I know, but that's just curiosity. apart from Danny Lane's, which are your favorite calligraphers in history?
In history or living? It's hard to say because I like different ones at different times when I'm going through different studies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love the calligraphy of the old manuscripts more than
Okay.
anything. Honestly, the
Uh-huh.
illuminated manuscripts, I think I've studied more because it's so imperfect. And the characters of each of the penmen
The
show
human touch,
through.
yeah.
And when the scribes were bored, they'd start noodling all these little images and drawing designs and fitting things into lines. And it's
Because
just
you're,
so human. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, you are a great gilder. I know. I took a class from you, and you did how many years? 30, 35 years
Yeah,
gilding?
I've been
Yeah.
doing it a long time.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that's why you love manuscripts, maybe.
It
Or
is. I like the combination. And even with
okay.
Spencerian, I like the little cartouches and a little decoration. Not all the big flourishing necessarily, but just some
Mm-hmm,
little touches. I like elegant things. And
mm-hmm,
to me, that's really elegant, just to have some little, I've always loved the decoration and the lettering together. I
mm-hmm.
always thought that showed off
Okay,
things more.
so that was historic. And living calligraphers?
Um, well, John Stevens is probably the best living calligrapher, bar none, that there is. You know, no matter what style he's doing, pointed pen or broad pen or anything else. I, that's hard for me to answer because so many of them are
Okay.
friends of mine. I'm going to get in
Okay.
trouble if I name some and don't name
No,
others.
okay, we won't name. Okay, is there some advice that you would like to give people that are starting to study Spencerian, or struggles that you've seen in your students that people may avoid, or
I think the biggest key to it is to understanding the underlying ovals. And
mm-hmm,
once you truly get that to where you can see the oval of even the negative space, that you are always drawing on some part of an oval, be that on the slant or be it horizontal, once you get that shape down, it's simply oval into oval into oval, and it all flows. It's like figure skating,
mm-hmm,
you know,
mm-hmm,
where it just, you don't turn tight little curves necessarily. It's not hockey where you have all these
sure,
really abrupt lines in there. It's a very flowing. It's also very asymmetrical, which I like.
mm-hmm,
It's it's not equal on both sides. One side is straighter than the other, so it's very different from copperplate in that way, where you have very smooth, almost wave-like movements,
uh-huh.
and you don't in Spencerian.
Okay, and I know you always start your classes with pencil work,
I
so
always do.
practicing in pencil would help students to get that vision of the oval in the script, or
I think it's really important. I have beginning students do two things, and one is to work on particular drills in pencil because I don't want them worrying about messing up pen and ink or splattering or anything. And if you can't build up your muscle movement up here, this is what drives it. If you can't build this up from up here to where it's strong enough that you can have a light touch, then all you're going to do is constantly, let me back up a little bit because I'm not, all you're going to constantly do is plant your hand and write a few letters and plant your hand and write a few letters. And you're
mm-hmm,
never going to get graceful that way. So this part of the arm really has to take on the movement. So
mm-hmm,
they start in drills. The second thing we start on for all of the lowercase is pencil,
mm-hmm,
because unless you understand the form, you shouldn't be going on to pen. You shouldn't be
okay,
having to think about how does the form work when you've got wet ink in your hand.
uh-huh,
And it's just as elegant and graceful with a pencil. That works just as well to really set the form into your mind. And then you can pick up a pen and you're not trying to look at the guide sheet and look all over the place.
sure, sure. You mentioned that Spencerian was somehow the start of the the present American cursive writing system that you use in school, right?
It
So
is,
it
yeah.
all started from Spencerian.
It all started with Spencerian. Palmer came out of Spencer's group and study and found a way to remarket things, basically. It was a brilliant business move. And also speed it up a little bit so that Palmer eventually took over as the handwriting system, and that stayed with our country for probably 40 or 50 years after Spencer's time, maybe even longer. And then other people have come along since then. You know, people like new things, so they keep reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
And it's a new way to market, and it's, you know, people want something that's just flashier and different. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I would say now it's your time, folks, to ask questions if you have to Harvest, and if not,
I've missed almost
that's
everything that's been scrolling by on the screen, so I'm sorry if I haven't answered anything.
let me check very quickly, or Kate may help us.
Hi,
Hey,
Paul.
Paul.
All right, while you're checking that, I'm going to show you some of the stones.
Yeah, someone was asking about online classes. Will answer. Yeah.
These are the little oval stones that come from a section of the beach in Ohio where Spencer's from. And you don't find this shape of stone in very many places. Different water systems in different parts make different stones, and they're unique to that area. And almost all of these stones
Are oval.
They're the ovals, but they're particular size of oval, and if you break it down, it almost comes down exactly to the golden mean of what is
Really?
beautiful to our eye. And if you measure these out, that's what it measures to, which is amazing to me. But I love these. I always keep some on my desktop. They're a
Okay,
treasure.
we've got a question. Harvest,
Okay,
what do you do to relax and play in calligraphy, if anything, versus to practice and develop and focus on specific skills?
good question. I think to me, what is more relaxing is doing the little cartouches and little bits of flourishing, especially like I showed you in those Daniel Ames cards, because you're not thinking lettering. It's using a different part of your brain where it's drawing. And yet you're enforcing your lettering at the same time because you're still doing thins and thicks and you're getting used to your pen and the manipulation. So for me, that's a lot of fun to do. It's relaxing because I'm not worried about it looking precisely like a letter. There's a lot more
I
play.
remember when we started your workshop in London 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you made us stand up and relax our shoulders. And that's something that was very strange to me because no teacher ever taught me to do that. So
We do it every morning at the Saga. They have to do their exercises before we start. It becomes a joke, but I still
do it every morning. So
good.
before I
Good.
write.
Otherwise, these muscles just build up lactic acid and get big knots and give you headaches, and you have to really work them out.
Which is your favorite nib for Spencerian?
That varies. The ones that I teach with are almost always a Nico or Zebra G, simply because people have heavy hands and it forces them to lighten up because they're such a stiff nib. Leonard Principles are a good nib. I have thousands of nibs here, literally. So when I'm doing projects, I pick different ones, just to try them out and give them a shot.
Do you use vintage nibs?
I do use a lot of vintage nibs.
Okay.
That is awesome. Oh, good, Mike. I'm glad you did. I do use vintage nibs, but I never teach with them because, if people can't get a hold of them, then there's no point in me showing what they can do. I just frustrate students, so I don't.
Okay, we've got another question for you, Harvest. How important is it to extend the fingers when holding the pen? It is really hard for me to do that.
I'm not sure what they mean by extending the fingers, but hold on and let me get a pen in my hand here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe she refers to the pen grip, that you don't have to flex your index so much as you do in cover plate.
Well, I do though. I think with adults, it's different because you have a pen hold that you've been using all your life. So the older the adult, the less you're going to change the way that they grip their pen. Okay, this is a pen that Heather made for me that I completely adore. It's a perfect weight. So when I'm holding it, these two fingers are not touching each other, and that's really important because when you're turning your pen, if you're doing a capital stem stroke or something, you need to be able to manipulate it slightly. And if your fingers are pressed together, you can't turn the pen, you're turning your wrist. And that's not the movement that you want. So you have to have it spread out a little bit. My finger, right now, it's resting fairly straight, but when I'm pushing on a downstroke, it does get bent.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's helpful in answering that or not.
All right. Any other question? Unfortunately, we have a time gap between us speaking and them writing, so well, I think that's all.
Oh, good. Glad it helped.
Good.
Thanks.
Good. Okay. So while we wait until you go online with your next Spencerian class, I think you've got a new class starting soon with Yves Le Tam.
His opened registration today, so it's been very busy. He's doing a drawn capitals class.
Which is wonderful, yeah.
Gemma Black is going to do a foundational class for us, so there's a lot of good classes coming up.
Well, we had someone asking if you could show us some of your works.
Can you give me a second to grab one off the wall? And
Sure.
Okay, give me just 1 second.
Hold on, folks. She's getting works. Hey, loads of people here.
Okay. I think I'm going to show it in front instead of trying to do the camera in back because it's a little big. And it's...
Wow.
This is the Spencerian capital alphabet. And then I did it with filigree and some gilding in there too.
Wow.
So all of these lines are Spencerian capitals.
Amazing.
So that's the only one I've got close by. I don't keep a lot of my own work.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay. So, Heather, it was so, Harvest, it was fantastic to have you here. Thank you so much for this chat.
You are welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you for your time. I think we are all waiting for your online class, but most of all, we are waiting to have you here to teach
I can't wait.
in person.
I know. I hope that things settle down so I can be there.
It will be 2021, so everyone has time to start a little bit, practice by himself.
Practice your ovals with a pencil.
Right.
You know, really, you will go so much farther if you keep that up and just keep practicing like that.
Someone will see you in July. So at the convention.
Yes.
Okay. So thanks again.
And you will see in fall at the Saga.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hoping you can still come, I know.
Yeah, I'm so hoping to do that. Yeah, but I'm positive. Okay, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Love you.
No,
Thanks all for joining
bye.
in. Bye. Bye bye.